So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent 41, Space Kent. And if you get that reference, then you are significantly better in my eyes than if you hadn't. But anyway,
I couldn't believe we hadn't done Space Kent.
I know. Yeah, you know what? It seems like the kind of thing we would have done, but we hadn't. So what are you going to do? So
All apologies.
today we are going to start with the next class in CSE 101. This is class 2. The place I got it from said that the title of this class is Why Satan Hate Us. So
It's a good class title.
yep. And let's see. Oh, we have to wish someone happy birthday. And that is, of course, Beverly Crusher, Dr. Beverly Crusher. It is her birthday today.
Or it will be.
Well, it is the negative anniversary of her birth.
Right. It just hasn't happened yet. But
Right.
it does happen
On this day
this day,
in the future.
October 13, some year in the distant future.
2289 or something, I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, so happy birthday, Dr. Crusher, in case you watch this ancient internet video far in the future.
Mhm.
Hope you're having a great day.
Yeah.
Although I guess the early she could watch it, she'd be like a little toddler, she wouldn't even know.
Well,
But it would
don't
blow her
watch-
parents' minds, though. Her parents' minds would just explode.
Don't watch it until you're 26.
Okay. But let's see. What else is going on? Oh! My apartment complex decided that because I wasn't leaving the house often enough, my car looked abandoned and they towed it. So that happened today. That was fun. Oh, and no, they're not taking it off my rent.
You know how hard it is to tow a car that's big enough for a dinosaur?
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Any quick little thoughts for you before we go into the rules?
No. I
Okay.
have no thoughts.
What else is new?
Hey.
Alright, so, of course, we have a little bit of a drinking game that goes with Kent with Bent, which, by the way, we do not encourage you to play along with. And if you do, we do not accept any liability for any injuries, bad health outcomes, accidents, anything else. This is play at your own risk. We don't encourage you to. But if you want to, we have a few rules. One is, we drink whenever Kent says something that is actually factually accurate without it being a direct quote. So if you get something right on his own, take a drink. Doesn't happen much, but it happens every episode so far.
Yeah.
So, next one is whenever Kent is just saying something that's so stupid, I just kind of have to. We also have one for if Kent tells a joke and it just fails to land, and usually when that happens, one of us is like, wait, was that a joke? And then we have to, oh yeah, I guess it was, and then we take a drink. And then last but far from least, we have one little trigger for when the various kaiju come about, which I'm going to have a demonstration of. There we go. We'll take our first drink for Godzilla. So, delicious. That is, there are a few things, so you can hear that Godzilla sound. Sometimes there will be a Mothra sound. Also, since we have some kaiju stickers, or not stickers, but emojis, for those of you who are channel members, if any of the channel members super chat with a kaiju emoji, we take a drink for that. Also, there are a few people who come by who have kaiju names in their profile, and we usually just take a drink for their super chats either way. If you would like to join the channel, of course, the link to do so is in the description. It gets you access to videos early. It gets you access to the patron and members Discord. We just had one of my newer members, Cattlehorn, who's in my October credits. He just got the access to the Discord, so he watched Thursday's video today. So, and it starts at $1.99. So there you go. If that's something you're interested in, feel free. Also, there's a Patreon. Make sure you like the video. All the YouTube, do the YouTube things. Like and subscribe if you want a pizza roll from this web zone.
Yeah.
All right. So I think it's time to just go right into Kent. I don't think we need any more preamble. Do you?
Right. I'm ready.
All right. Here we go.
All right, let's continue. Last week we left off with the reason Satan hates us. We're made in God's image.
Okay.
Now, we can spend days and days on this topic. It's a moral image. It's also, we have a Trinity. We have a body, soul, and spirit. God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And there's whole books, you can take whole courses on that, so I'm going to refrain from getting distracted too far. We'll never get done. But Hitler is quoted as saying, if you tell a lie long enough and loud enough and often enough, the people will believe it.
Should Godwin's Law be a new drink reason? Because I'm really tired of Godwin's Law.
If you want, I'm fine with just skipping it.
All right. I'm a little thirsty, so I'm going to go for it. It's an optional drink on this one.
But Donut Space got the answer correct.
Oh, what did Donut Space say? Oh, Red Letter Media. Yes. Yes, that is the Red Letter Media movie.
I really do miss those hot dogs, though.
From the future.
From the future.
All right, here we go.
He also said that people are more likely to believe a big lie than a small one. And it's surprisingly true. If I told you, I worked a job and I made, $40,000, people, wow, you really? But if I say I worked a job and made $1,000, you did not. They'll believe it if it's a bigger lie somehow.
Right.
It's just people are that way. I've got 2 older brothers and a younger sister. I was raised in East Peoria, Illinois. When I was about 6 years old, I came running into the breakfast table one morning, and I got the last banana out of the bowl to put on my cereal.
Didn't he tell this last time?
I think so, because I remember seeing him.
Ugh.
It's the spider story. I don't mind the spider story.
It's just that, Kent, dude, you say it so often, but whatever.
And a few minutes later, my 2 big brothers came in. They said, hey, Kent, is that the last banana? I said, yep, and I got it. Any of you have an older brother or sister? You know that wonderful feeling when you finally pull one over on them? No. Boy, they pick on you all the time. That morning, I had them,
remembered having that feeling.
They wanted.
No.
I never pulled one over on my older sister or my younger brother either.
No? Never fooled them?
No.
I convinced my youngest brother that Nick of Time was a person. He got really angry when I wouldn't tell him.
My brother did that to me a couple times.
Okay.
He's smarter than me. But growing up, I would just lose to him at Nintendo and punch him in the arm until he let me win.
Fair enough.
I was not a good brother.
You know what the way to even out the video gaming thing is as adults?
FTL races.
Well, no. What you do is you do something that you can play a few rounds of quickly, right? But winner takes a quick drink. So that way, the one who keeps consistently winning gets worse and worse, and relative to them, you get better.
Yeah, maybe.
Or you just play against someone who's really, really bad, like the time I did that with Halo with my ex, and I was about 12 shots in, and she was still losing. And that I basically passed out. Not long after that.
Yeah, she still couldn't beat you.
She beat me a few times towards the very end.
Okay.
But anyway, enough of that.
My banana. But big brothers do not beg their little brother for anything. They just beat him up and take it away. So my brother said, Kent.
Oh, and Muck Mayfair says, did you know gullible isn't in the dictionary? What? It's not? What? Let's go look it up.
Do you know how bananas are made? I said, no. They said, well, down in South America, they have these spiders that live up in the trees, and all their legs fold up when they die, and mold begins to grow on the dead spider legs, and a banana is actually made from moldy spider legs. And I said, you guys are lying to me. You just want this banana because you know it's the last one. They said, no, brother, we're not lying. You cut that thing in half and look in the middle, you can still see the black spots where his legs were. I gave him my banana that morning, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, everything else is mold, right? So
it's a lot of mold. But what's the shell? Or the rind? I don't know what you call it. Peel? Yeah, peel. That's what you call it.
More mold.
That's just a peel of mold? Is the mold
it's
feeding on the
mold
mold?
and spider legs. That's what Kent said. So.
All right, fair enough.
I wasn't about to eat that thing. And I did not eat bananas for nearly 3 years after that. If you want somebody to believe a lie, you have to mix it in with some truth. And that's what Satan has always done. When he quoted Scripture to Jesus, he always quoted partial Scriptures. If you read Matthew chapter 4, where Jesus is up on the mountain, being tempted of the devil, Satan's technique was always, and all the cults do the same thing. They quote part of a Scripture. They mix a little bit of truth in with their lie, and it's just a technique that it works. I mean, that's what they've been using for years for rat poison. Same idea. You mix two things together. Rat poison is 99.995% good food. There is very little poison in rat poison. If I gave you a glass of water with 2 drops of arsenic in it, would you drink it?
Quick, 1 in the chat if you would drink the arsenic water. 2 in the chat if you would not.
I also wouldn't eat the apricot seeds.
Well, yeah, because that's got some cyanide in it.
Yeah.
Well, technically, it has something that has the primary metabolite of cyanide.
Say hi, Doggo.
Hi, Doggo.
Say hi.
Guys, we got Doggo.
Can't
Also,
talk.
he was broadly correct about how rat poison works, so I'm going to take a drink for that.
Okay.
So good job, Kent. You know how rat poison works. Oh, do not drink hand sanitizer random Evo times. Don't do it. You'll go blind.
I would follow your doctor's advice.
This is not medical advice, it's just life advice. Don't drink hand sanitizer.
Yeah. It's good life advice.
Alright, and for $449 redues, we have Can't Stay Half Work, but Hi Daps and Bent. Well, hi Ian Chen, it is always nice to have you around. And that $449 reduce is going towards the impound fee fund is what that's going for. So here we go.
Well, it's mostly good water, but it's the poison that's going to get you, right? Now, I'm afraid that television is about the same way. There might be a lot of good stuff on there, but there's little bits of poison in there once in a while it'll get to you. It'll absolutely destroy you if you're not careful. They always seem to have, people say, oh, it's a good show, it's only got a few bad words. Well, think about it now. It's a good show, it's only got a few bad scenes. This is the same idea.
All right, so this isn't particularly... Actually, it is kind of stupid. I'm going to take a tiny sip. I have yet to have anyone explain to me what the moral character of quote-unquote swear words is. Now, if you're talking about, like, slurs, I get that, right? I can see why those are things you don't want to say. But when it comes to just regular old cursing, like expletives, why? And people will, and even from like the divine command framework, when people point to the parts of the Bible that says, don't curse your neighbor, I'm pretty sure it didn't say, I didn't mean like, don't say, various curse words at them. It meant literally, don't wish ill upon your neighbor. Don't send curses their way.
Yeah, that's rude.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, if you stub your toe and you say, damn. I don't think that's what the Bible's talking about. I think the Bible's talking about things like saying, I hope you get cancer and die in a fire while on chemo. Don't say that to people. That, I can see the reason why the Bible would be like, yeah, don't say things like that. But if it's like, don't stub your toe and say, damn, like, what? Why? Like, literally, why? And I've yet to hear a good reason for that from anyone, so. And I actually think the Bible's on my side on this one, not Kent's. So.
Slowly get into your mind. They do this to sell Marlboro cigarettes. I share with my seminar, how that they mix Marlboro cigarettes in with cowboys, as if there's some kind of connection. Now, you have to learn to watch for this, because this is a brainwashing technique. So somebody associates smoking with being a macho cowboy. They've seen them together all the time, and now they make the association psychologically. Well, man, if I start smoking Marlboro, I'll be a cowboy.
No,
that's simply not true. Of course, they do the same thing with beer.
That's stupid. I'm going to take a drink. No one literally thinks they're going to become a cowboy because they smoke Marlboros.
Well, they keep buying more because they didn't have enough yet.
So the idea is supposed to be that you associate rugged manliness with Marlboros. And you think of yourself as a rugged man, right? So you might as well smoke the cigarettes of rugged men. And now you smoke Marlboros. You're using sort of the iconography of American culture. Cowboys are associated with independence, with freedom, with manliness, strength, all these things, which are sort of the a lot of them tie all the way back to like the Roman virtus, which is manliness, which is how we get our word virtue, the martial or manly virtues, right? That's what Marlboro is trying to do. I'm not trying to trick you into thinking you're going to actually literally get a horse and drive cattle if you smoke enough Marlboros. No one had that idea. Whatever. Here's more Kent.
Always associate beer with sports. I tell people, stop and think about that. What is the connection between beer and sports?
People like to do both. That's literally
to go to sports games and buy beers and drink them.
Beer is fun to drink. Sports for many people are fun to watch. I might not be one of them, but I understand it.
Look, I remember being at a baseball game in the 1990s, and one of the guys near me was really drunk, and he said, if they gave away tickets for free and sold the beers for 50 cents each, I would come to every game and spend $20 on beer.
Damn.
And I was like, I'm going to remember that. That's an interesting thing to hear. And I'm like 12 or 13 or something.
Right. But that is the thing. It's like,
I got drunk.
What is the connection between beer and sports? Entertainment, Ken. Literally, that's the connection. It
makes baseball fun.
Well, I can't speak to that personally. It has made football fun for me a few times. But I don't know if it's ever made baseball fun for me. But here we go. Maybe if there were a free beer, I would watch baseball.
You want your quarterback full of beer when he's out there?
No, you want the stands full of beer. I'm drinking again.
You want those guys in Indianapolis 500? Do you want them going 200 miles an hour, tanked up on beer?
No, it's for the audience.
Watch the world heavyweight champion boxing. They're out there slugging it out. What's right on the mat under their feet? Budweiser.
Sometimes.
I tell them it's not Budweiser, it's Bud Stupid.
Wait, isn't it
Or
stupider?
Bud Dumber. They call it Budweiser, but it doesn't make them any wiser, that's for sure. Bible is real clear about this.
Hey, you know what?
Laugh at his stupid joke.
Not a single person laughed at either of those jokes. That's 2 jokes, by the way.
This is so good, I need a second drink.
Mm-hmm. My goodness. It's like advertising. Okay, look, I'm not an advertiser, right? I'm not saying that I could do a good job writing up an advertising campaign. But the very basics of the motives behind making an advertising campaign aren't rocket science. Right? Recently, what is it? Cyberpunk 2077 came out with a new commercial. Basically, it was just a live-action monologue from Keanu Reeves. You know why? Because everyone loves Keanu Reeves and he's in the game.
So it loves Keanu Reeves.
I mean, okay, look, anyone who's here who doesn't love Keanu Reeves, let me know, because I want to hear your reasoning on that one. But yeah, so it's not hard to figure out. Why is it that they show people drinking beer at sports games? Because it's fun to do, and you like sports, right? You like beer, right? Well, this is a good beer that you can drink at your sports game while you're watching your sports game, either at the stadium or at home or whatever. It's the same reason they advertise like Taco Bell in relation to sports. It's because, you know what's fun to eat during a sports game? Cheap tacos. There you go. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Subject, don't touch alcohol. Now, who hath woe? They that tarry long at the wine. Let me just kick this dog as we walk by. In the English language, we have some words that are kind of limited. For instance, we have one word, love, which has many different meanings. I love pizza. I love my wife. I love my dog. Those are different kinds of love. And we know automatically what you mean by the sentence it's used in. We know which kind of love you're talking about. In the Greek language, they were kind of limited in some other areas. They have many different words for love, but they only have one word for wine, where we would have several words. We would have grape juice, grape jelly, grape syrup, alcoholic wine. So there are many different words that we have in English that they did not have in the Greek. They had one word.
I'm not sure if he's right, but I'm pretty sure he's going to a stupid area here.
It comes from the grape. It's called wine. It does not mean it is fermented.
Okay, so there we go. I'm going to take a quick drink here. So here's the thing. We know what first century people were doing with grapes. This isn't like a big question, right? Occasionally they were consumed whole as just a fruit, right? Occasionally. But basically everyone in the entire Mediterranean area, which would include all of the Jews, all of the Romans, all of the Greeks, the North Africans, all these people, they were fermenting them. That was basically the only thing you did with wine, with grapes. You fermented them, then you might then go in and do other things, right? Like, so a lot of times, first century wines were spiced. Sometimes they were mixed with water. Sometimes lead powder was added to make it sweeter, which, by the way, also life advice, don't mix lead powder with your food or drink.
Don't do that.
Just don't do that. No. But yeah, so this isn't like a question. And we have like wine skins and potsherds from amphorae carrying wine and things like this. Like, we know what was going on. And there is no evidence of unfermented grape juice being a common beverage anywhere for basically all of history until it was invented in the United States by a preacher who wanted non-alcoholic communion wine.
When did that happen?
I'm not sure. But as far as I know, that is the first historical inkling we have of people drinking unfermented grape juice. Yeah. Basically, grape juice is like something crazy, like a 19th century invention or something. It's extremely new. This projecting the idea of grape juice back into the past is basically nonsense. And there's a reason for that, right? Like, juice is actually a really kind of stupid thing if you think about it. That's why we don't have a lot of history of juice being drunk, right? Because when you juice something, you get rid of most of that fruit. So if you're not going to do something pretty cool with it, why are you bothering? You're throwing out most of the calories that could come with that. And in a place where, famines are common, if you're going to juice something and you're not going to turn it into alcohol to preserve it, and also to make it safe to drink in the long run, you're just wasting all of that pulp and rind and all of that stuff, all of which could be contributing to your calorie intake in a situation where starvation is a real possibility for everyone. Grape juice does not make sense until you get to the modern time where you can afford to literally just throw out most of the grape. Yeah. So, I'm going to take another drink because it annoys me how pseudoscience or pseudo-historical that is. So, yeah, Kent, there might only be one word for wine in Greek, but we know what they were referring to. And it was not non-alcoholic grape juice or grape jelly.
Which is why the Bible says in Proverbs 23, talking about they that tarry long at the wine. And then you see in Proverbs 23:31, look not thou upon the wine when it is red. Now think about it. That means there is a time when it isn't red. It's still called wine,
What?
but once it ferments, if you read this passage carefully, when it's red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright, when it begins to stir itself as it ferments.
Does Kent think that red grape must is not red?
I don't know what Kent thinks.
I'm going to go ahead and drink because, okay. So, you guys have seen red and white grape juice, right? So, red grape juice is the kind of thing... Now, grape must is the kind of thing that you turn into wine. It's not exactly the same as what we get in grape juice, but it's basically the same idea. You're taking the liquid parts of the grape out. It's already that deep reddish purple right when you get it from the grape. There's no, like, in-betweeny time. Oh, there's Mothra. So I don't know exactly what the Bible means here. I don't really care. I also would rather read it in some more modern translation that's actually a better translation. But either way, you cannot say that the wine isn't going to be red until after it ferments. That's not how this works. And you can watch videos and read books about winemaking. Red grapes produce red grape juice and red grape must, which then gets fermented into red wine. And white grapes make straw-colored must or straw-colored grape juice, which makes straw-colored wine, because white wine isn't actually white, it's straw-colored. Or light yellow, if you prefer. So, here we go.
Some people say Jesus drank wine. No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. I'm drinking for that.
Not
Yes,
our
he
kind
did.
of wine.
Yes, he did.
Turned the water into wine, which was grape juice, and they drank it the same
Drinking
day.
again, nope.
And Jesus could not have drank alcoholic wine because he would have gone against what the Scripture says.
Yeah,
And he didn't violate any Scriptures. So the whole problem comes from the limited Greek language in that particular word, and English has more words to describe that. Anytime you translate, you have that problem. Tanya, you speak Russian, you try to, sometimes there just isn't a good word.
All right, so here's my big question here. The King James Version is supposed to be the authorized version from God in English, right? According to Kent Hovind. This is the most bestest English translation. So why didn't English, which has so many more words for all these things, get it right? Why?
I don't think he can hear you.
Okay. That's true. That's a good point. Okay. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, that doesn't make a whole... Nah, it's 9:30. He's probably asleep.
Okay.
I'll be honest, though. If we were doing this at, like, noon, and you had just told me that, I'd be calling 1-800, or whatever, 888-Big Dino and extension 3. I would be on the phone like, hey, Kent.
Big Dino?
I don't know what it is exactly. I don't remember. I mean, it's...
Okay.
No. Look, I'm not here to harass Kent Hovind. No one should be harassed. No one.
It's just a question that I wonder how he would answer that question.
I do wonder, but I'm not going to call the old man at night. It's just not.
Or like maybe in a super chat on his next debate or something like that.
Oh, he turned off super chats.
Of course.
Well, on his own channel, I guess if he's on like modern day debate or something, but he's been ignoring questions that aren't what he considers off topic. So
to put in. For what do you mean by that? And sometimes it takes a whole sentence to describe what one word says. And this is a case with wine. The Bible's real clear in Habakkuk chapter 2. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink.
Ooh, I like Habakkuk.
There's a curse on those that supply alcohol to other people. There's a curse on those that drive the beer truck.
I don't know. That might be the whole thing.
There's a comma there.
Well, what was it? Let's back up a little bit. 2:15. So let's check Habakkuk 2:15.
We need
or just
but
well, he's not around.
He's not around.
We could also. I'm just gonna look up Habakkuk 2. I'm just gonna check Habakkuk 2.
Oh, there's okay. He misspelled Habakkuk.
Oh, there's a big express.
I couldn't spell.
Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin until they are drunk, so that he can gaze on their naked bodies. Okay, so what Habakkuk is actually saying is, don't get your friends and neighbors drunk so that you can take advantage of them sexually.
Wouldn't we call that rape?
It would be at least sexual assault.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, so the Bible is saying, hey, don't sexually assault your neighbors. And you know what I'm going to say? Agree. Do not do that. Do not get your neighbors, and by neighbors, this is sort of a general term, like the people around you. Don't get them drunk so that you can sexually assault them. Good job, Bible. I'm with you. Also, I'm taking a drink because Kent was stupid about what the Bible actually said.
It's the same sentence. It's the same verse.
It's the same verse.
It's also the same sentence.
And he didn't even bother to say it was Habakkuk 2:15a, which is what you're supposed to do when you only quote like the first part of a Bible verse. You're supposed to say A.
He might talk about the rest of it.
Do you think?
He might. No, I don't think he will. But
okay,
he might.
So yeah, it's just like, dude, come on.
Alcohol to other people.
It's
There's a
not what
curse
it says.
on those that drive the beer truck.
Not what it says. I'm taking drinks.
There's a curse on those that give out the wine. There's a curse on them.
It's literally not what the
I
verse
don't want a curse
says.
on my life. I couldn't take a job as a...
He's misquoting the Bible. Okay, would that not
true and scientifically accurate? But he's misquoting it.
I just took a drink. Wouldn't that be blasphemy according to himself? Is he blaspheming right now?
I don't know. He might be. I'm never gonna say this person's blaspheming. I don't feel comfortable making that statement of someone.
Would you say it would not be an unreasonable
conclusion? What I'm saying is he misquoted the verse.
I'm going to go out and say it. I'm going to say that according to Kent's own...
what it says.
I'll just say this. I think that according to Kent's own standards, this would constitute blasphemy. According to his own standards. And, oh, God. It's so gross. Because it's like... It's not what the Bible says there. It might be.
You know he knows the whole verse. You know he does. Why is he picking out Habakkuk 2:15? No one's ever quoted a verse from Habakkuk before, ever. Like, that's not true, I'm sure, but like, it's not.
I actually like Habakkuk. I remember like looking at it as a kid in my Bible and I was like, "What the heck is this book?"
I don't know if it's quoted very much in like the New Testament or in sermons or whatever.
No, it's not very much. But I do remember as a kid like looking at my Bible and I was like, "What the heck is Habakkuk?"
Yeah.
And then I read it and I was like, "Oh, I kind of like this book. Okay, cool. It's short. It's got themes about like it's got some moral aphorisms in there. It's got themes about suffering in there and how to cope with suffering. It's a good book. I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you want to read a quick book that is a reasonably enjoyable read, Habakkuk. It's the last book in the Old Testament, right? Or it's towards the end. I don't remember. Just open up your Bible. It's a good one if you want a quick little Old Testament book to read, full of nice little aphorisms like "Don't sexually assault your neighbors," which is good advice.
It's very good advice.
Yes. Hashtag not legal advice. But again,
well, it's good advice.
Yes.
Stewardess on an airplane for fear God would be upset with me because I'd have to serve the first-class passengers alcohol when they ask for it. I couldn't work in a store if I had to serve alcohol. I wouldn't want to be a waitress or a waiter if I had to do that.
You couldn't
I know some people that have stood their grounds and said, "This is my conviction. I'll come work at your store. I'll be a good waiter, etc., but I won't touch the alcohol." And look, if you're a good worker, the boss will give you something else to do.
Actually, I will say that is actually a reasonable. If you have a moral conviction against serving alcohol, and that can be reasonably accommodated, I do actually. I will say that is actually a reasonable request, and I think employers should honor it. They can get an alternate server to deliver drinks every once in a while, or something like that. On the other hand, there are jobs where it's not reasonable, and I have encountered times when there was a thing. It was a few years ago. I think this was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. But there was this whole big thing of whether Muslim cabbies in London would be allowed to refuse to give rides to people who had alcohol in their like shopping bags. And no, that's not reasonable, because the accommodation required to get a new cabbie and to make sure that they're not Muslim is extremely difficult, and that's the kind of thing that you shouldn't be doing this job if you're not willing to transport people in the cab who have alcohol in their shopping bag. But if it's like, oh, I just need an alternate server to bring over the drinks when someone orders a margarita at like Applebee's or something, your employer should be able to work with you on that. So I will actually somewhat agree with Kent here that employers should be willing to work with people's religious and moral convictions about something, as long as it's not a main part of the business. Like, obviously, if alcohol isn't okay with you and you're trying to get a job at the liquor store and you're like, I won't touch the alcohol. It's like, well, what will you do? It's like, I'll sell people limes. It's like, no, get out.
Lock the door at night.
Right. Like, no, we're not paying you for that. So I do mostly agree with Kent. Yes, employers should seek to make reasonable accommodations for people's ethical and religious objections where it's reasonable.
But Habakkuk's a good verse to consider. There is a curse on those that.
It's only a good verse to consider if you only read the first clause.
The first part of the verse is good. Rest,
actually, I would say the whole verse is great. But yeah, Kent disagrees. He doesn't like that. Maybe Kent is okay with you trying to uncover your neighbor's nakedness, but he's not okay with you giving them drink to make it happen.
Drink alcoholic beverages and those that even serve it to other people. Now, I tell people, so one kid said, "What's the matter, Brother Hovind? Don't you like beer?" I said, "I don't know. I've never tasted it. I'm 47, never had a drop in my life. I've had NyQuil a few times." And then he said, "Well, how do you know you won't like it if you don't try it?" And I always respond by saying, "Well, that's a brilliant way to live. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever laid your head under a semi-truck?" "Well, how do you know you won't like it if you don't try it?"
All right. Well, first of all, I want to see if anyone laughs, because that's a joke.
You don't have to try everything to know if it's good or bad, okay? There are other ways to learn.
All right. So it was a joke, and no one laughed, so I'm taking a drink. And then I'm going to take another drink, because that was incredibly stupid as an analogy. I'm going to explain why after I take a drink. Okay, so It is the case that there are some things that are so obviously not going to be a good time that there's no point trying them. Like eating 500 apricot seeds. You're going to have a bad time. You might die.
Well, okay, putting your head under a truck just in case you might like it. No one does that.
No, but here's the thing.
But a lot of people try beer.
So one of the things is, like, we can predict just based on math and even to some extent common sense what's going to happen if you put your head directly under the wheel of a semi-truck and then it drives forward. Like, we know what's going to happen. But we also know what happens when people drink some beer, which is to say that with moderate consumption, they have a good time. We know that. And the negative effects of beer, we also know. So you can do a reasonable risk to benefit calculation in your brain before you've ever had your first beer and say, yeah, this is something I might want to try because people really enjoy it. And the risk to having, like 2 or 3 beers is not very high. It's extremely low, actually.
It's also not even necessary for him to use the analogy if he religiously doesn't want to taste beer ever.
Right. Just say
he
that.
could just say, hey, I don't care. Maybe I'd like it. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
That's the thing.
It
Like,
tastes I don't ever want to taste it.
I have said to some people who who don't religiously object to beer or don't have an ethical objection, like, hey, we should try to find a beer that you like. And some people have been like, yeah, okay, and other people have been like, no, whatever. But I've never said that to someone I know to be like Muslim or Mormon, right? Because I know that they have an actual religious objection. I'm just like, you know what? Fine. I will in no way try to encourage you to drink any beer because you object to it. Although I did have a Mormon instructor who made beer bread, and I asked him about that, and he was like, well, all the alcohol bakes off, so it's fine. And I was like, okay, I guess. Wasn't entirely sure that worked, but by the way, that beer bread was delicious. Also, we have a $1.99 US super chat from Vandali 1998 who says, didn't Jesus turn water into wine? Mothra emoji, which means we drink for the Mothra emoji on a super chat. And again, that almost $2 is going towards the impound fee fund, which is...
So we're going to get that thing paid off by the end of the night.
Not at
Let's
this
get
rate.
these donations going.
But so the short answer is yes. We touched on it slightly earlier, but basically we know what wine was in the first century, at least roughly, and it was basically all alcoholic. Jesus turned water into wine that was alcoholic. We know...
I did say it was grape juice.
Well, it was fermented grape juice then.
I'm just saying, Kent said it wasn't.
Yeah, no, but Kent is
People who have degrees in history say it was.
And archaeology. In fact, actually, not that long ago, I read a whole long thing about the archaeology of first century Judea wine, and like what kinds of wines were being made there, and how you could get like the most authentic version of the wines that Jesus would have drank. And it was very consistently alcoholic. And one of the things that I picked up on the most was it said that the wines tended to be a bit raisiny and a bit spiced. So if you were to mix in some like mulled spiced, like mulling spices into your wine and get a raisiny wine, which a fair few Greek wines tend to be a bit raisiny. So you can look for like a raisiny Greek wine and mix in some like mulling spices. That would actually be pretty close to the wine that Jesus would have had. So there you go. If you want to do a little historical drinking, have fun with that.
And any kid dumb enough to fall for that thing, well, you got to try it to know if you'll like it. Look, that's not, have you ever jumped off the building into the concrete head first? You ever poke your eye with an ice pick? I mean, no.
Again,
you don't have
same
to do
objection.
things to know if it's good or bad. You can figure it out some other ways,
Oh, and that
One
was a
good
joke,
way
so we're going to
is
drink
to read
more.
what God's Word says. Another good way is to talk to somebody who's older. You get these 7th graders taking advice from fellow 7th graders.
Well,
That's real brilliant.
Not necessarily someone who's older, but someone who's gone through something that you want advice on.
Right. But the thing
Older
is...
people tend to do that, but you don't have to go to someone older if it's something.
Right. And part of the thing is, though, like, most people who are older than you who have had beer are going to be like, yeah, beer's good. I like beer. You should have some beer. It's great. But they will also say things like, don't go overboard. Don't, drink like 40 beers in a night. Like, take it easy. But yeah, have a few beers. It's fine. Most older people who have had beer will say that. Also, yeah, the whole thing about older, like, Bent, if you wanted to start using Blender, would you ask me for advice?
Yeah.
No, I'm way older than you. So,
Well,
would you ask a younger but more experienced Blender user?
sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, the older thing is not very important, but here we go.
Man, ask somebody who's been around the block a few times. They can give you some wisdom. I like sitting talking to the old people, you know, these 70, 80, 90-year-olds. Unbelievable, some of the stuff they come up with.
I mean, I agree with
They've been around,
that.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. I think he's kind of conflating two things here.
Right. Like, when I'm talking to older people, a lot of what I'm looking for is, like, you know, stories of things that were happening in, like, the 60s or 70s or whatever, whenever they were roughly my age or something. Or, you know, whenever they were roughly your age, I mean, because I'm you know, 150 million years old.
Exactly. He's just the royal us.
Right, yeah. So, yeah. But, like, if I'm like, oh, hey, what kind of beer goes best with pad thai? I don't care how old you are. I care how good you are at beer pairings with food. By the way, I kind of like an IPA with my pad thai. Just throwing that out there.
They've learned a few things. What's happening, though, the idea of mixing good and bad together is exactly what's happening in our textbooks. Science textbooks, and I have a huge collection of them, there's a lot of good science in them, okay?
Oh,
But
hey, wait.
there's some...
Kent got that right. There is a lot of good science in the science textbooks. Take a drink, everybody.
Good work, Kent.
Okay, let's
You
hear
did a lot right today.
poison mixed with it. If you analyzed rat food, you would find out it's mostly good food.
No, Kent, you're thinking of rat poison. You're an idiot. I'm taking a drink. And by the way, that's Indian Pale Ale, not International Phonetic Alphabet. Although the International Phonetic Alphabet is amazing, and I think everyone should become at least proficient with its use in their own language and any other languages they're studying, because it makes transcribing speech and pronunciation and all that stuff so much easier. It's especially good for picking up a new language. Like, I remember when I was taking Arabic in college, and the book was giving these weird descriptions for certain sounds, like ein or chain or like God. And I was like, what are these actual sounds? And my professor wasn't giving great explanations either. So then I just looked up the IPA transcriptions for these sounds, and I was like, okay, got it. That's all I needed. Thank you. So this is a retroflex D with its pharyngalized. Got it. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, so I would very much recommend, if you're into, like, learning new languages, look into the International Phonetic Alphabet. It's amazing.
And I'm not objecting to good food. It's the poison that's bad. And I'm not objecting to science,
Yes,
but it's the poison mixed in with the science.
There isn't any.
And this is how they get by with it. They will say, oh, the book's awfully good. Yeah, but what about the poison?
I just realized this is a VHS rip. There's a tracking error at the very bottom. I don't think you guys can see it, but there's a tracking error at the bottom because it's such an old tape.
Nice.
Okay, sorry.
And now let me show you something. Here's a first grade textbook. They tell the kids in first grade, Earth has changed much since its formation 4.5 billion years ago.
Yeah.
They start off with a first grader telling him the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Now, this is the teacher's edition. So what I'm...
Oh, you know what? So Andrew Cumming points out that there's a lot of wrong in textbooks. So here's... This is accurate. So textbooks tend to be somewhere around 10-ish years out of date. And it's an unfortunate fact, but the thing is, textbook editions don't come out fast enough, nor do textbook companies have sufficient funding, basically, to keep up at the cutting edge. Because basically, you cannot keep on staff like researchers for every single facet of what's in your textbook. So you have to just go with what has been consensus for a while, which means that the very newest stuff is usually not going to be in various textbooks. And it is an unfortunate fact. But the thing is, like, if it's been 10 or so years since, like, the Five Kingdom model has been more or less abandoned, which I don't remember exactly when that stopped becoming the consensus. It's what I was taught in high school, but I know that around the time I was in high school, it was starting to fall apart. But, like, it's not that bad. You're going to still get a reasonably accurate picture of consensus science from, if you go with from about 10-ish years ago. So yeah, it is the fact that there is generally some inaccuracy in textbooks, but usually it's because they're out of date, not because they're just flat lying. So that is a problem, or I don't know if it's entirely a problem, but it's just something that's the case, and you should be aware of, is that your science textbooks that you're getting in high school right now, or even to some degree in college, are going to be a little bit out of date. So yeah, that is accurate, but they're not lying to you. They're just older. It's sort of like, if I had someone in chat a while ago who said that I think it was one of their relatives, I don't know, but he had been a paleontologist for a while and then he retired, and when he started learning about the idea that birds are dinosaurs, he was just complaining about and rejecting it. And it's not because he was dumb or trying to lie to anyone, it's because he hadn't read the new literature. And then he read the new literature and he realized that he had been wrong, and that the new evidence actually demonstrated that birds are in fact dinosaurs. And so he changed his mind. He was like, hey, I guess all this stuff that I had learned was incorrect, but at no point was he lying. And it's sort of the same thing with a lot of the errors in the textbooks. It's outdated. It's not lying to you. It's not poisoning you.
Showing is what's in the margin for the teacher to teach the kids. Teach the kids the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
Yeah, because it is.
Now, if you tell that to a first grader, he's going to believe you.
I agree.
Don't you think it's reasonable that the first grader should be able to go to school, listen to the teacher, and believe what they say?
Yes, I'll take a drink.
I mean, they ought to be able to, shouldn't they?
Yes.
So the humanists know in order to get their religion believed by the majority, they have to start with the kids when they're really young. Start in first grade. They tell.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to take a drink because that was stupid. Humanism is not predicated on an old Earth. It's not even really predicated on atheism. Humanism is essentially an ethical standard, which says that the thing that we ought to be most concerned about is human flourishing, and that we ought to encourage it to the maximum extent possible and discourage things that reduce human flourishing. Now you can get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what human flourishing means and all that stuff, right? But the thing is, by the basic ethical definition of humanism, you can just be a Christian humanist. You can be a young Earth creationist humanist. They're not technically contradictory. Now, very few people would identify as both, but that's the thing, right? If it encourages human flourishing, then it's in line with humanism. Now, most humanists tend to end up being non-religious people because that's what they're using as sort of their alternate philosophical grounding for their ethical and moral considerations, as opposed to whatever divine command theory a religion might offer. But yeah, evolution and humanism are just not necessarily related. There's no particular connection between them. It's just that the Venn diagram between people who accept evolution and people who are humanists is mostly a circle. It doesn't have to be. There's no logical contradiction between accepting humanist values and accepting that the Earth is 6,000 years old and created by a supernatural entity. Those aren't conflicting ideas.
I'm again in second grade. Since its formation 4.5 billion years ago, Earth has changed. Yep. At the bottom they say life too has evolved on Earth. Now right here we've got to take some time, and one of the quiz questions next week will be the 6 different meanings of the word evolution. This is how the kids get confused every time.
I'm just going to take a quick drink for his 6 definitions, because we all know what's coming at this point.
I have learned the hard way, after doing, 46 debates now and over 4,000 radio and TV call-in talk shows, if you want to win a debate on evolution, it's very simple.
Accept evolution and argue against creationists.
You first define the word.
Yeah.
When somebody says, do you believe in evolution? You have to say, what do you mean? Because there are 6 different meanings to the word. Number 1, we have cosmic evolution, which is more commonly known as the Big Bang.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the Big Bang. It's not evolution. And I'm taking a drink. I'm going to probably take a drink for each of these, except for the last 2. You know that, right?
I'm not going to be able to drink that.
Well, maybe you just need a bigger bladder.
I do need a bigger bladder.
Work on that.
Can I borrow a bigger bladder?
No, here's what you do, right?
On my Amazon wish list.
Here's what you do, right? You just drink as much fluid as possible and hold it as long as possible, and then keep doing it. I recommend water for this.
Okay, well, I happen to have water.
Just don't drink too much water so that you die that guy on the Boston Marathon a while back.
Or that woman on a drink a whole bunch of water. Or some.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Water is great for you. Drink a lot of water.
Water in 3 hours and die.
You can drink too much water. If you drink enough water, basically the concentration of electrolytes in your body will drop too low, and you will no longer be able to successfully send like nerve impulses, and then you will die. Now again, hashtag not medical advice, but if you want to drink 3 gallons of water in an hour, consult your physician. And then when he says no, I told you so.
Has anybody ever observed a Big Bang produce anything orderly?
Yes, they have. By reason that the Big Bang has produced numerous successful predictions about the universe. But you probably know a few.
A few of what?
Or at least a couple or so predictions of the Big Bang that were predicted based on the Big Bang model and not observed until later after the prediction.
Not off the top of my head.
With CMB? The cosmic microwave background?
Explain.
All right, so there's the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is basically the after image of the decoupling of light from matter. There's the resonance structures in the universe that are on the basis of the fact that at one point sound was actually a fairly dominant factor in terms of relative density in the universe early on after the Big Bang. There's the cosmic redshift. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Now, did we observe the event directly? No, but we've made multiple observations of things that would not be true if not for the Big Bang.
If best I remember, Big Bangs produce big messes.
No, not
That's
always.
the folks in Hiroshima that survived that Big Bang about 60 years ago, right?
What the Big Bang
That's
was
the folks in Iraq that survived.
Wait, he chuckled.
I think that the Big Bang was just a nuclear bomb going off, and then
Basically.
parts left over.
Also, he chuckled. Was that a drink? Or, I mean, a joke?
It's a drink. It might even be pills.
All right. Yeah, let's just take one drink for either stupid or joke. Because, yeah, Kent basically thinks it was just an explosion.
Survived all the Big Bangs we sent over there, several years ago. Cosmic evolution would be the origin of time, space, and matter. Remember we mentioned how God is a Trinity from Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth as a reference to time, space, and matter. Right there in
energy,
Genesis 1:1. The Big Bang is an all.
What about energy? Now it's a quaternity. What are you going to do with that? He would have been better off saying time, space, and energy, because then at least he could argue that matter is essentially congealed energy, but he doesn't think that's true. If you haven't seen the King Crocoduck debates, by the way, go check those out. King Crocoduck versus Kent Hovind, where Kent Hovind thinks that E equals mc squared only goes one way. You can convert matter to energy.
That's true.
And his example of that is burning logs, which is not an example of matter turning into energy. It's an example of releasing chemical energy.
It's kinetic energy.
But it's chemical energy turning to thermal energy, which some of which then goes into kinetic energy with like sparks and smoke and whatnot. But whatever. But so he thinks that is an example of E equals mc squared with matter turning into energy, but he just outright denies the possibility of energy turning into matter. So I don't know. Basically, what I'm saying is I could be a better young Earth creationist. I could be a better young Earth creationist here than Kent would, because I would say space, energy, and time, and then point out that matter is just a form of energy. But we have a $4.99 super chat from Vandalia 1998 who says, "I tackled the first 4 of the Kent evolutions in a playlist over on my channel. If anyone wants to know, if one of my mods could link Vandalia 1998's channel, he has a show called Talking Time with Caffeine. I've been on it. It's on my playlist of Dapper Dino on I think it's Dapper Dino on other channels. And there are a lot of times really good topics and a lot of really cool guests. So take a look at that. But here we go. Let's find out more about Kent's misunderstandings of the Big Bang.
Alternative substitute way to explain how we got time, space, and matter. The Bible starts off and says, "In the beginning, God." Now, if you can believe those first 4 words, the rest of the Bible's easy to believe. God created time, space, and matter. According to evolution, the Big Bang created time, space, and matter.
Kinda? I mean, So not matter, so I'm going to take a quick drink because there was no matter in the initial expansion of the Big Bang. Took a little bit for matter to actually cool up, for the energy to get to a low enough density for matter to actually form. But it's space and time, kind of. So there are a lot of ideas for the Big Bang that would actually have a larger sort of multiverse in which time and space would actually exist in the sort of like the eternal inflaton field ideas, but those are still extremely speculative, and it's hard to even conceptualize a way we would test them. So that's sort of iffy. But in terms of our own universe, it's sort of reasonable to say that time and space began at the Big Bang. But again, maybe. So, yeah.
Attribute the same characteristics that God has to Big Bang. Able to produce time, space, and matter. The second definition of the word, after the Big Bang supposedly exploded, the Big Bang, according to the evolutionists, would produce hydrogen and possibly a little bit of helium.
Maybe some beryllium.
The sun is hydrogen and helium. The question then would come, how do we get the other elements? Where do we get lithium and carbon and oxygen and neon and all these 92 elements plus the synthetic ones we have? Where
That is a question. Fair.
do we get these elements? You'd have to have really billions of years of chemical evolution.
What?
Now, the answer the evolutionists often give to this one is, well, stars are so hot, they're able to produce higher elements from just the heat. Okay, well, where did the energy come from then? You're going to have either...
What?
Can
What? No, I want to hear his answer, because then I'll understand the question.
matter or energy, one or the other.
What?
I mean, yeah.
You thought you would, but you didn't.
No. I'm taking a drink. You want to field this one?
I want to hear the whole thing, all with no pauses. You have to rewind it.
Okay, we'll rewind it 10 seconds. We'll see what we get.
Higher elements from just the heat. Okay, well, where did the energy come from then? You're going to have either matter or energy, one or the other. I mean, yes,
Right,
stars
so
do produce a lot of heat, and sometimes...
And from what I can tell, and I could be wrong, he doesn't seem to understand why stars have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Like, why the intense pressure actually helps, with energy.
Sphincter of Doom points out I skipped over lithium. This is true. I'm sorry.
Well, and then...
You want me to field it instead? Because you seem upset.
I'm not upset. I'm fine. I'm good.
Yeah, you're good?
I'll be good soon. All right, smell on my face. I didn't take any pills, everyone. Come on, it's just a gag.
Way to ruin the illusion.
Yeah, it's not a illusion.
Okay, so Ben, I'll let you feel this one because I know you know enough about nucleosynthesis and
I don't want to talk about
No, all right. Okay, I'll give it a go. Okay, so when a star collapses from essentially a hydrogen cloud, right? The energy provided to the star is primarily converted to thermal energy from the potential energy of the gas cloud. So usually what happens is some pressure wave passes through the cloud. Usually as a result of... There's a whole bunch of things that can cause it. There's gravitational interactions that can cause it. Novae or supernovae can cause it. Lots of things, right? I think the most frequent is probably gravitational waves, or not waves, but like some heavier object passes through, whatever. Okay, but also there's just simply the fact that matter was anisotropically distributed in the after the Big Bang, as a result of just quantum fluctuations in the initial stages of the Big Bang. So this gas cloud starts to collapse, and as the potential energy is converted into kinetic energy as it falls towards the center of mass. But as kinetic energy ends up being exchanged for thermal energy. And so when you have a high amount of mass that's going to start off with a high amount of potential energy, which is then going to turn into a high amount of kinetic energy, which is in turn going to turn into a lot of thermal energy. So when you have this ridiculously high thermal energy as a result of the potential energy of this, just billions of kilograms worth of mass, right? It's going to result in really high temperatures, which will then result in a whole lot of heat, which can then fuse things up to about iron in terms of a stellar core. And then, towards the end of its life, once iron production starts to overtake other kinds of fusion, you get a pressure buildup, and the star will eventually start to explode. And if the star is massive enough, the temperatures released in the actual supernova will be high enough to get basically any of the naturally occurring elements. And, yeah, this is not a mystery. We know that supernovae produce elements higher or heavier than iron. And we know that novae produce elements all the way up to iron that are then released. So, yeah, this isn't a mystery. Like, we can actually tell, because you can do things that, like, look at the light signature of supernovae and novae and see, like, okay, what spectral lines are we getting? What elements do they correspond to? We can just check. Like, it's not, like, magic or anything. We can just check. So, here we go.
To produce other elements, some of the higher elements. But all of the reactions we see in nature, we see uranium decay to lead. Potassium decays to argon.
Okay.
They're all downward. We don't see any upward ones without enormous energy input.
Okay, technically he's right. I'm going to take a drink. That's true. We don't see them without enormous energy input, and they do tend to decay to lower atomic numbers. Yeah, technically true. It's a good thing we have high energy input situations, Kent.
So the question is, how did we get the higher elements?
I just explained.
They don't talk about this hardly at all,
What?
But it is a real serious obstacle.
Astronomers do not talk about supernova.
Look, I've taken an astronomy course. They talk about this a lot. I'm taking a drink. That's just an outright lie. But also, I think it's time for a quick intermission. So we are going to take an intermission, and I will see you back in a few minutes with a fresh drink. And I don't know how much worse this is going to get, but I'll talk to you guys soon. I want to take a moment to talk about something serious. There is a problem facing late surviving non-avian dinosaurs in modern America. Hunting is very strictly regulated, and only allowed at certain times of the year. This means that for much of the year we have to rely on farm-raised food, which means money. If you want to help a starving dinosaur, please consider donating on Patreon, or buying from my merch store. Links are in the description. Please help. Dinosaurs all over YouTube are depending on you to help them through the hunting off-season. Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, Ujira desu ka? Hai, Gojira-san. Hai. All right, we are back, and we are back with a new super chat for $4.99 from Vandali98, 1998, and that's $4.99 US. Kent was right. Evolution does not talk about how higher atomic particles came about, mainly because they are two different sciences. And a Godzilla emoji, so we drink for the Godzilla emoji. Thank you very much. Once again, that will go towards the impound fee because my apartment decided to steal my car.
Hey, Maya.
So, oh hey, Maya.
How you doing?
And also, hey, Sphincter of Doom, who has been on the channel actually.
That's true.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's get a little bit more Kent in.
You'd have to go through a stage of chemical evolution. Then after that, you'd have to have stellar, which means stars.
What?
Stellar and planetary evolution.
No, you're reversing them. No, Kent, we get stars before we get heavier I'm immediately on a new drink.
All right. Stars are formed when a lot of hydrogen is like, let's all get together and form a star. Helium doesn't do that. Lithium doesn't do that. Beryllium doesn't do that. Just hydrogen.
I mean, it would fall into a star if it's present. But, like, it's not the primary constituent.
I don't think there's ever been even a suspected reason to think any star ever formed from anything besides hydrogen.
Oh, there's Godzilla.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
So Pop Zero stars, yeah, I think it's Pop Zero. The first stars would have been almost entirely hydrogen. Current stars, I mean, when the interstellar gas cloud's going to collapse, there's going to be trace elements of helium and lithium and
trace elements. I'm talking about what is the mass.
It's almost certainly going to be just all hydrogen. Almost all hydrogen. Yeah. So we don't need chemical evolution, quote unquote, before we form the first stars. What are you talking about? Yes, the first stars would have had extremely low metallicity, which is astronomers speak for anything higher than hydrogen. I just
and so Kent can't even represent, like, because he's not, he doesn't believe in these things. These are the evolution, the 6 evil evolutionist list or whatever he talks about. Like, it's not. He's not even pretending to represent it correctly.
So,
not to mention, none of it's evolution except for, I think, number 5.
I think 5 and 6 are both evolution, yeah.
6.
So somebody asks, wasn't helium a quarter of the matter after the Big Bang? I think it was significantly less than that, but I'm not a cosmologist, so I don't take my word for this, but I'm pretty sure it was much closer to like 1-ish% rather than
Someone else says it is a quarter.
Someone else says it?
Maybe.
So double check, right? Like, cosmology isn't my specialty, but I'm under the impression that it was more like like 1 in 100 bit atoms after the Big Bang, when the first atoms formed were, or we'll just go with the nuclei, were 2 protons as opposed to 1. I do not think it was even close to a quarter. But again, double check, because this very much not my field of expertise. But hey,
and either way, even so, let's say it was 25%. Okay, so is that, what does he say? The origin of higher elements from hydrogen. Is he talking about helium?
Well, so one of the things is right now
All these irons. That's what he was mentioning.
well right now I know that much more than 75% of the atoms in the universe are hydrogen. So I will say that with a fairly high confidence. That currently much more than 75% of all atoms, or we'll go with nuclei, because atoms don't really mean much in terms of plasma, which is the most common phase of matter in the universe. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm very confident that much more than 75% of all nuclei are a single proton, or a proton and a neutron. So I'll go with that. But here's more, Ken.
How did the stars form? I mean, you walk outside, you take a look, there's a lot of stars up there.
Yep, that's true. Take a drink.
Estimates are every person on Earth could have 2 trillion of them.
Broadly accurate, I guess.
Per person. So, where did they come from? One atheist was trying to answer this question one time, and he said, well, don't you know, Dr. Oven, if 20 stars explode near each other, they'll produce enough energy to create a star.
I don't think that conversation ever happened.
No.
That,
no one's
that sounds like
that.
a thing that he made up there.
I would love for him to cite that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He cited it. One atheist told me one time. That's his citation.
You're right.
Kent, one atheist one time told me that you were actually gay. What do you got to say about it? Now, I don't have a problem with that, but I know Kent does. So, Kent, if you watch this, come at me. What's your counter? Is it your 4 wives? One of whom you didn't legally marry? Is that your counter? Because there's a thing called beards. So, yeah, one atheist told me one time. There you go.
So, what do you think about it? You got to lose 20 to gain 1? You sound like a Democrat
Godzilla.
trying to borrow your way out of debt. If
Okay.
you're losing 20...
So, I don't get into politics much, but here's something. If you think the Republicans don't increase the debt, I encourage you to look at how much the debt has increased when there has been Republican control of the Congress and the executive branch. Because they like to spend money like crazy when they're in control. They are not fiscally conservative the way they say. The only time the Republicans oppose spending is when the Democrats are in control of the executive. Oh, let me take a drink. Basically, when the Republicans have a slight control of the executive in the United States, and they do not have control of the executive, then they tend to try to make motions to, limit spending. Any other situation, they are just in complete spend baby spend mode. They do not care. And Robert Birkinson for $4.99 says, if the Earth is round, then why don't cars on the bottom of the Earth feel that they're upside down? It doesn't make sense to me. That's because the center of gravity is more or less the center of the Earth, and things are pulled that way. So down is relative to the direction from you to the center of the Earth. And another Godzilla. Is Bob sending me things?
I don't think so.
We're gonna find out here.
I don't think so.
Nope. I might have to blame Sphincter of Doom.
And
You?
yeah.
Oh, come on. All right, here we go.
to gain 1, it looks like a losing proposition to me, doesn't it? First place, nobody's ever seen that happen. It's just theoretical that it could happen if 20 exploded. That's just all theoretical. Nobody's
stars each other to make another star.
That's true.
No one's ever seen.
Although we have seen plenty of stars forming, so I don't know. We know of active stellar formation regions in the galaxy. Orion's belt is one of them. But hey,
ever observed it. Now, since
the belt is a nebula.
science deals what we can observe.
So, okay, Orion's belt contains 3 bright stars, but behind those stars is a nebula. And the nebula is visible to the naked eye as sort of a fuzzy patch. So I don't know. What do you want?
I thought the nebula was in the constellation, but not on the belt.
I think it's on the belt. I don't know. I'm not an astronomist.
It doesn't matter where it is, but it is forming stars.
Yes.
Observe, we can test, we can demonstrate. This part of evolution is not science. It's part of their religion.
No.
It would have to happen, though. It'd have to happen a whole bunch of times.
I mean, yes, that's accurate.
Trillions of times,
I'll take a
because
drink
there's
for that.
a lot of stars
That's
up
true.
there. Number 4, you'd have to have organic evolution. That is basically the origin of life.
You mean abiogenesis, the thing that doesn't actually follow evolutionary principles? Yeah, okay.
How did life get started from non-living material? We will cover a whole lot more on that experiments they've tried to do to create life in the laboratory. Back when we get to what's on my video number 4, it'll probably be several years before we get there at the rate we're going in this course. But we cover the origin of life. It's absolutely hasn't happened. Nowhere close.
What do you mean it hasn't happened? I'm taking a drink, and I'll explain why in a second. Kent Hovind thinks the origin of life happened. He thinks it was a supernatural event where God just sort of poofed life into existence, but that means the origin of life happened. There's neither young Earth creationists nor old Earth creationists nor people who aren't.
I think Kent thinks of God as being alive and having lived forever.
But God isn't alive in the traditional sense.
I think Kent thinks of it in the same way.
So
I think he does. So I think Kent thinks
still
that
stupid.
life has always existed. It's still stupid.
Because God has always existed?
Life wasn't on Earth, and then there was life on Earth.
Alright, well, I'm taking another drink for Godzilla. Okay, well, either way, it's stupid, and I'm taking a drink for it.
I could be wrong, but I think that's what he thinks.
No, I think your explanation is actually pretty reasonable.
One student, I was in a debate one time at University of West Florida, and this smart aleck student stood up and he said, Dr. Hovind, what would you say if a bunch of intelligent scientists someday create life in the laboratory? I said, well, first place, they're absolutely nowhere close to it. They can't even get the amino acids to stick together very good.
Now, I want to point out, that means that he's saying that the lack of ability of scientists to put together life in a laboratory is evidence against the possibility it could happen in nature. That's what he's saying here. I'm pretty sure he's about to flip it.
That's just a small building block. I said, secondly, I would have to say, if a bunch of intelligent scientists produce life in the laboratory, that would prove it takes intelligence to create life.
And that's where I take a drink, because Kent just did a heads I win, tails you lose. Not how any of this works, Kent. Not how any of this works. The thing about laboratory tests is that the main point isn't that they're controlled by intelligent agents. The idea is that you're supposed to isolate as many variables as possible to see what can happen, and then you let just nature take its course after you've controlled as many variables as possible. That's the whole point. Like, the fact that I can get, say, true breeding mice breeds in a lab doesn't mean that genetics requires intelligence to continue operating. Like, that's not what that means. If that were the case, then basically all of laboratory science would be invalid. But I know Kent Hovind likes to talk about things you can see and observe and repeat in labs. So Kent is just contradicting himself here. And it's an example of his extreme dishonesty in terms of intellectual integrity. Like, Kent Hovind might be the least intellectually honest person I've ever become aware of. I mean, I would say like maybe Nathan Thompson or something, but I think he's just dumb. I don't think Kent is as dumb as Nathan Thompson, so... I mean, look, Nathan...
There's a lot of things I could call Kent. I don't think dumb is one of them.
No. Well, look, Kent Hovind hasn't too often posed in his underwear or harassed kids at school, so...
I mean, he didn't pay his taxes a whole bunch.
That's true. I think that's because he thought he was clever enough to get out of it, but he's not that dumb.
But like that's pretty dumb. But in general,
yeah. All right, maybe. Look,
like a con man and a liar, and
I think he's mostly a con man.
Even though I don't think he literally sells like cans of oil that come from a snake, he is a snake oil salesman.
Yes, he is.
But the metaphorical.
Right, he's a metaphorical snake oil salesman.
Right.
Got it.
Just to be clear, in case I ever get a whacking atheist on me, which Kent, I'm a Christian, by the way. Boom, roasted.
Yeah, Beethoven, not an atheist.
Why am I even...
All right, here we go.
Which is what I've been saying all along. It would actually prove creation, wouldn't it? It certainly wouldn't prove evolution. It wouldn't prove it could happen by itself, by chance, over billions of years.
Oh, and in relation to the Kent has never posed in his underwear, which, by the way, Nathan Thompson did. It was cringy, and I wish I had never seen it. But and also he never harassed kids at school and while filming himself. And Maya says, "Credit where credit is due." I guess. Yeah, basically. I mean, he did. I'll just say this: there's reason to think Kent Hovind may have committed negligent homicide. So,
no comment.
Yeah, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying there's reason to think he might have.
And it hasn't been done. They're absolutely nowhere close. Step number 5, you would have to have macroevolution.
Hey, we got to the first evolution.
This is the origin of major kinds. There are quite a few different kinds of animals.
Until you define that, I'm going to press X to doubt. Also, X in the chat to doubt.
Where did they come from? When you get into a discussion on evolution, I would encourage you to avoid using the word species.
Okay.
The Bible says the animals will bring forth after their kind. Now just stick with what the Bible says and you'll be fine. Because if you get into a discussion on species...
And actually, yeah, so this is a bit of a dumb here, so we're going to take a drink quick. Because, well, it is the case that there are multiple definitions for species, and some of them are a bit fuzzy as a result of the kinds of organisms we have to apply them to. Macroevolution is literally change above the species level. So it starts at speciation. Again, it's a bit fuzzy, but the part of that fuzziness is because biology is a little bit fuzzy in terms of what's a species, which is one of the reasons why we know that micro and macroevolution essentially use the same mechanisms. So if you accept one, there's literally no scientific basis for rejecting the other. There's none. Because of that looseness in the species definition. So the real thing that should be said here is species definitions are a bit fuzzy in many cases, and macroevolution starts at speciation. Therefore, there really isn't a difference between micro and macroevolution. It's a matter of degree, not kind. And I know what's a kind.
Somebody's going to prove to you that a dog and a wolf are different species. And well, by our classification system, they are. There's Canis lupus and Canis domesticus, and they're different species. I point out, well, they're interfertile. A dog and a wolf can breed and produce puppies, so
okay.
There really is no good solid definition of species.
But can a dog and a fox? Are they different kinds? What about? I don't want to go through the whole phylogeny challenge, but like Kent will be wishy-washy on whether or not the bring forth offspring definition works, because he will admit that sometimes that like he actually is on record as saying like rabbits from Alaska can't reproduce with rabbits from Florida, but the intermediate groups can. Okay, then can't reproduce offspring is a useless thing for determining whether or not two things are in a different kind. All we can say is, if two things can produce offspring, they're in the same kind. But if they can't, that doesn't make them in not the same kind. So it's a useless definition.
I would say there probably also is not a good solid definition of the word kind. But if you put a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana on the table, and bring in a 3-year-old, and say, which one is not like the others? He could probably tell you, it's the banana, right? A horse.
Okay, a couple things. One, did he chuckle? He did. Was that a joke?
If it was a joke, then I guess I don't have to take it seriously. So
I'll take a drink, but here's the thing. Let's say we replace the banana with a fox. Well, the dog, the wolf, and the coyote still form a group. Okay. Well, let's say that we replace the dog with a tiger. Well, now the tiger is the odd man out. And the fox gets grouped together with the wolf and the coyote, and of course the wolf. Okay, but now let's say that we replace the wolf with a pangolin. Well, now the tiger and the coyote and the wolf are grouped together. And I can keep going all the way. And there's always 3 that are going to be grouped together. And I replace one of the other ones with something less related, and we get a new grouping. Like, let's say I replace the fox with a horse. Well, now the pangolin and the tiger and the coyote group together, and the horse is the odd man out. Why is it I can keep doing that, Kent? Why? Oh, I'll tell you why. It's because evolution is a fact of biology.
it's because of lines on paper.
Yeah, I guess that could also be it. All right, here we go.
Horse and a zebra are the same kind of animal. It's obviously not like a tomato, right?
Yes,
I'm not sure.
Obviously go to the farthest thing you can think of. Except they're all eukaryotes, as you know.
Exactly where the border is between the different kinds. There probably is a little room, and that'd be a good area of study.
You know what? Here's the thing. It would be a good area of study, Kent. But here's the problem. Creationists have tried. And a person I'm friendly with on the internet, in his image, has said, hey, creationist baraminology hasn't been able to distinguish humans from apes since the 90s. And you know what? That's true, because baraminology is essentially the pseudo-scholarly attempt of young Earth creationists to determine what a kind is. And yeah, they can't tell that humans aren't apes. And there's a reason for that. And the only way they resolve two different groups as being outside of like the same ancestry is by excluding other organisms that would in fact bridge that gap. So yeah, it would be a good area of study. And what happens when you don't ignore data is that you cannot draw lines between kinds. That's why phylogenetics and cladistics has yet to be able to say any group of organisms doesn't share common ancestry with any other group, because they don't ignore the data. And actually, this is a little bit of a preview, but not this week, but in a future week, I'm going to be premiering a video talking about academic fraud, because baraminologists always have to commit academic fraud in order to not conclude that groups are related. And whenever they don't, turns out that, yeah, any two groups you care to name, they're related once you include enough of the taxa that are in, like, you know, the whole cladistics as demonstrated by mainstream science to connect them. So, more count.
Area worthy of study, but it's pretty obvious when there are different kinds of animals. Most of the cases are...
And I want to point out, so Nikki Davis said, which, by the way, hi Nikki, says, pangolins are the most trafficked animals in the world. They are critically endangered and used in Chinese medicine. They are also widely eaten in a lot of East Asian places, and it is true. Pangolins are tragically trafficked, and they're one of my favorite mammals. They're sometimes called scaly anteaters because they have what looks like scales, and they eat ants, although they're not closely related to the anteater. But yeah, pangolins are great, and it is true that they are just tragically over exploited in a lot of places, Southeast and East Asia primarily. And that's a lot of that is the fact that that's where a lot of the pangolin species live. There are also some African species of pangolin who are less heavily trafficked, and a lot of them are doing a bit better. But yeah, I really hope that we can turn that around as a world, because I would rather have a world with pangolins than one without, because they are awesome and amazing, and I love them.
Clear-cut, obvious. Some are a little questionable. Okay, we can study the fringe if you'd like, but let's not waste time focusing on the fringe. Let's look at the bigger picture. The sixth and final definition of evolution is microevolution. That is variations within the kind.
Wrong. I'm taking a drink. This is just blatantly dishonest. Microevolution is evolution below the species level. Because Kent has defined kind as a group larger than species, he's just lying. This is Kent being dishonest. Kent is a liar, and a fraud, and a con man, and this is an example of it.
Now, this one is scientific. This happens all the time. That's what farmers do for a living, isn't it? They try to produce
Kinda.
a particular breed that's good for their particular area. You know, if they happen to live in cold climates, they try to get a cow that can survive the cold climate. Down in Texas, where it's hot, they produce the Brahma bull, you know, which can stand the heat. Then you get the Angus that has real good beef. And so when you're in a right kind of temperature area, you combine the two and get a Brangus, which has both heat resistance and good beef.
Okay.
Farmers spend a fortune trying to develop a variety that's good for their area. Even varieties of cotton for certain kinds of soil. But see, variation within the kind, I actually object to the word microevolution because that's what confuses the kids. But they're using it anyway, so we're kind of stuck with their term, okay? See, when they define the terms, it makes our argument a little tougher. The first 5 are religious. They have never...
when
When I can just randomly redefine scientific terms, it's easier for me.
Yeah, I know. That's literally what he just said. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm taking a drink for how stupid that was.
I might redefine some things. And,
Hey guys, if I can redefine anything I want, I can argue successfully for anything.
I can almost win.
Oh, man.
Never been observed. I did a debate in El Paso, Texas a couple weeks ago, and first thing I did, I gave the 6 different meanings of the word evolution. I said, now folks,
dumb.
number 6 is scientific. I wouldn't argue about that. Bacteria become resistant to drugs after a while. I won't argue about that. It's still a bacteria. Roaches become resistant to pesticides.
It is still a bacteria.
It's still a roach.
Yeah, there's this little thing, Kent, that I know you've heard of because I've told you about it personally. It's called the law of monophyly, and I'm taking a drink.
What's the law of monophyly? Does
Yeah.
that have something to do with cladistic?
It does. So once you're in a clade, which is a group of organisms that share a common ancestor, any of your descendants will never leave it. And here's what I mean by that. So let's say you have some kids, and they have some kids, and they have some kids, and so on for a trillion generations.
Whoa. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
At what point will those kids stop being your descendants?
Never.
Exactly.
When
So-
they all die out.
Well,
All of them die out.
then they still would have been your
But
descendants.
they still would have been my descendants.
Right. So at no point can you say that you're not the descendant of a thing. So if a clade is defined as organisms that share a common ancestor, then any of the offspring that they have will be a member of that clade. You don't get to jump clades or remove yourself from previous clades. So once the first bacteria were established, all their descendants would continue to be bacteria, no matter how much they changed. Once the first cockroach population was established, all their descendants would be cockroaches, no matter what happened to them. So, yeah. The point is that within existing clades, new branches form, which can change morphologically to a large extent over time. But they don't stop being members of the previous clades.
And there's a limit to the variation. They probably never will become resistant to a sledgehammer.
Yeah, probably not.
There's a limit in there someplace, right?
Okay, so what you're saying, Kent, is that there's a physical limit to biochemistry. No one disagrees. Literally no one is going to contest you that biochemistry and physics have limits for organisms. But you need there to be a genetic limit. You need to be able to say the genome can vary this much and no farther. No further, sorry. That's it. That's the line in the sand. And you need to be able to demonstrate that there is such a limit. But no one has ever demonstrated such a thing.
So what's going to happen? Scientists or evolution teachers are going to give thousands of examples.
Was that a Freudian slip there? He knows that evolution, quote, teachers are scientists?
Scientists, yeah.
Yeah, that's a Freudian slip there. He knows he's a liar.
Microevolution. which is indeed true. And then they somehow, by association, make the kids believe that all 6 of those go together.
What? No.
And it ought to be illegal to do that.
No one teaches that, though.
I'm taking a drink for how stupid
No
that
one
was.
teaches the 6 types of evolution to kids.
Look,
in public schools.
if a long time ago, the way that life started on Earth was that a trans-dimensional pink elephant came down on a chariot made of unicorns and farted the first life form into existence after eating too many beans, that would have nothing to do with evolution. If the first stars formed because Buddha decided to sit on a big hydrogen cloud and he's fat, that wouldn't have anything to do with evolution. Literally none of the other things would have anything to change about the second 2 things, which are evolution. They could be basically anything, and evolution would remain true. It doesn't matter. They are not interdependent. The fact that they all align pretty well where they do overlap is just evidence that they are all evidence-based and likely true. That's it.
Okay, it's called bait and switch. You get them to, offer them one definition of evolution, variation within the kind. Most of the textbooks will say something like, evolution is change in a species over time.
I don't like that definition, but I understand why it's sometimes used.
That sounds real innocent, and that's true. Don't you probably look different than your grandpa? Yeah. Does that prove you came from a rock?
Straw man.
You see what I mean? Certainly doesn't prove the Big Bang or any other thing else up there.
And does not logically follow.
Yeah, no. All of that is just... Is it stupid enough for a drink?
Yeah.
Alright, there you go.
That's all fairy tale stuff. And if you will learn those 6 different meanings of the word evolution, and whenever you get into a debate or an argument on the subject, just simply stop and say, what do you mean by evolution? And if they say, well, things change. Oh, yeah, I agree. I believe that.
I'm going to say, if you get into a debate over evolution and your definition of evolution is, quote, things change, stop debating. Let's just stop. You're not equipped for this. Go back and learn more.
Ask your opponent what their definition is, and if it's equally bad, maybe just keep going.
No, I'm going to disagree with Bent on this one. If your definition for evolution is things change, you need to stop and go back and start back over with, like, middle school biology. Please don't everyone do that.
That's fair.
Oh, you believe in evolution? Well, I believe things change. I believe the change is limited to whatever information is already in the gene code.
You gonna define information for us, Kent? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that in the entirety of CSE 101, which is the series of videos we're watching, Kent will never give an objective definition for information.
No, he definitely will not. But,
and if I'm wrong, I will eat a sock.
But all you need is your nucleotides, Kent. That's all you have.
Yeah.
There's only 4, right?
There's 4. Any new mutation is going to be an increase in information in terms of the species' whole genome.
Any change in their order can have unpredictable effects.
Yeah.
Many of those will kill an organism, and many of them will not.
By the way, I like that T-shirt you're wearing.
Oh, this one? Yeah, I spilled air on my other shirt, so I had to throw it off after work.
Where did you get that T-shirt?
I got this from teespring.com / I don't remember. You have to check the description.
Oh, is it in the description where you got that?
Yeah, it's I'm not going to read the entire URL unless it's custom. But I will paste it in the chat.
All right. It's a very nice T-shirt.
It's cool, yeah.
It doesn't prove a turtle and a banana are related, that's for sure. It might be that all the 500 varieties of turtles came from maybe only 10 turtles.
500 varieties of turtles? Kent, you have vastly underestimated how much turtle diversity there is. I actually just did a video recently on turtles. It's called Things That Aren't Dinosaurs, whatever number. turtles. We went over turtle evolution all the way back from like the Triassic into like the, or actually no, all the way back into the Permian, I think. Yeah, the Permian, all the way to modern day, and we talked about a lot of cool turtles. So check that out if you want to. Yeah. Apparently, German Furman really likes your "you spilled air" on my other shirt.
It's a fluid.
It is a fluid.
So yeah, the URL for that is really long, and I can't get it to paste.
Boo! Did you go to Tiny URL?
No.
Slacker.
You should put a tiny URL in your.
Oh, I probably should. I might.
Yeah.
Check the description if you. Check the description. Well, check the description if you want Dapper Dino T-shirt.
I don't know how many kinds God made.
Of course you
And
don't.
today there's probably a lot of new varieties, but still, they're still a turtle.
Yeah, but
So be very careful.
Kent, evolution predicts they would always be turtles forever and ever and ever.
Because
You can win the argument every time if you and you got to watch for it because they will constantly try to blur the border between micro and macro, and they're missing the entire point of the other phases of evolution.
No, they're not.
Those are the 6 meanings, and if you just keep hammering on that, eventually they'll either get mad and go away, or they will get converted.
No.
Because that's to me is the whole crux of the argument. The teachers are taught.
No, they'll get mad at your blatant dishonesty and stop talking to you. I really want to know. I want to meet someone who was a well-informed atheist or just non-young Earth creationist whom Kent Hovind converted. I want to meet one. I don't think any such person exists. I don't think there is anyone who is well-informed about biology and evolutionary biology specifically who was converted by Kent Hovind. I just don't think it's a thing. So, yeah.
I don't know if you're out there. Contact the channel.
Yeah, seriously, I would love to have you on, and I'm not an antagonistic host. I think I think a lot of people can confirm that. Check out like my discussions like with Kane Wilson. I have a 3-part discussion on my channel with him. I have a discussion with Dark Knight Apologetics where I'm very not antagonistic. I'm a friendly dude. You can contact me. We can have a nice discussion. But I really want to know what it is about Kent that convinced you that anything you believed was incorrect. And also, philosophical thing here. Knowledge is a subset of belief. If you don't think it is, then you need to brush up on your philosophy. So, accept as a kind of belief. No is a kind of belief. And yeah, you can believe things for bad reasons, or you can believe them for good reasons. I just wanted to point that out there because it comes up every once in a while. It's fine to say you believe in evolution. If you say, I don't believe in evolution, I accept it. You're just saying, I don't believe in evolution, I believe in it. Because acceptance is a subset of belief.
In the teacher's manuals, be sure to stress that the Earth is billions of years old. Make sure the kids believe this.
No.
If I told you...
It's make sure they hear it.
It's make sure they understand how long that is.
Oh, I'm taking a drink.
Because it's kind of hard to really, 4.5 billion years. How long is it?
It's almost impossible to it's extremely hard to mentally conceptualize. So yeah.
Even for grown-ups.
Yeah, can I conceptualize 1 billion years? I mean, not really.
It's really difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Dog came from a rock because somebody gave it a pill.
And no one said rock.
And that's stupid, right?
Take a drink.
But in the science textbook, they teach the dog came from the rock over billions of years.
No one teaches that.
So if it happens slowly, maybe that happened. It's still a fairy tale, okay? It doesn't happen. Time's not going to change it.
No, Kent. It's like this. Let's suppose we were able to observe a process that happened at, say, 1 inch a year. And then we see something that looks like the result of that process, except it's 8 trillion inches. Well, then 8 trillion years is a reasonable inference. Now, these are hyperbolic examples, but that's the thing, right? We observe micro and macroevolution happening at certain rates. We know, independently of this, how old the Earth is, And we also know that the diversity of life as it exists on Earth is consistent with the operation of macro and microevolution over that kind of time frame, which is a wonderful consilience of evidence pointing to evolution as the best explanation for extant biodiversity as well as fossil biodiversity. That's what's going on here. Independent lines of evidence are converging on a single explanation that is cross-disciplinary. I'm sorry that you don't like science enough to understand why that's important.
You know, you say the man flew through the air, you know, like on some kind of fairy tale.
What? No,
Well,
no one
it's
says
obviously
that.
a fairy tale if the guy goes flying through the air. What if he goes slowly walking through the air? Is that less of a fairy tale?
Oh, that's dumb. I'm taking a drink. I don't even need to
The whole
explain.
thing that happens with evolution is they try to hide behind billions of years ago, as if that'll make a difference. And it doesn't make any difference. Okay,
I mean,
the first law of
I think evolutionists
thermodynamics.
would like to speed those billions of years up to prove it,
Yeah, I
to
don't.
demonstrate. I mean, it's not possible to do anything that.
Yeah.
And how would you rebut that? How would an evolutionist rebut that statement from Kent Hovind to his satisfaction?
Oh, to his
Is it
satisfaction?
impossible?
No, it's impossible. Yeah.
It's
Well,
not possible. There's nothing anyone could say because he'd be like, "You're hiding behind your billions of years." Well, it took billions of years, Kent.
yeah.
That's how long it took. So
And we know the billions of years exist from independent sources. Oh, there's Godzilla. All right, and he's about to get into thermodynamics, which just awesome.
The word thermo, where we get our word thermometer, means heat. We will ask you to
Yeah.
define
I'll take a drink.
thermodynamics.
what about thermostat?
Dynamics is where we get our word for dynamite, which means power.
Oh, he's right
So
again.
thermodynamics is heat power.
Mm-hmm.
One of the universal laws, the first universal law here, thermodynamics, tells us matter cannot be created or destroyed. If you change
No, that's sort of the dummy way of saying it. The first law of thermodynamics says that the total amount of energy cannot be increased or decreased in an isolated system. The total amount of energy is always constant in an isolated system. And an isolated system is a system where neither energy nor matter can enter or exit the system. However, within an isolated system, the amount of energy or matter can change if matter is turned to energy or energy is turned into matter. So that's not true. And in a closed system where matter cannot leave but energy may enter or exit, then of course the total amount of energy may change, but the total amount of matter cannot. And in an open system where both matter and energy can exchange, then both can fluctuate. So Kent is basically giving you a dumbed down to the point of being wrong explanation of the first law.
change something from one state to another, you burn the tree, you change it into ash and energy.
And there we go. There's Kent confusing E equals mc squared with the release of chemical energy. The tree didn't turn to ash and energy. The tree turned to ash, and the chemical energy was released in the form of thermal energy, Kent. I do not get why the most basic of thermodynamics escapes Kent. And look, I'm not some kind of crazy physicist who knows everything there is to know about thermodynamics, but I'll just say this. I managed to get through the nuclear pipeline in the Navy, which involved a lot of thermodynamics.
A lot. Oh my gosh.
I know. And Kent's understanding would have had him fail.
There's no way. There's no way he would have.
He could. No, absolutely not. He would have failed almost immediately at engineering fundamentals or whatever the class was called. It's the most basic.
Heat transfer and fluid flow. He would have, assuming he didn't argue with every point being made, because it's the thing about this school is it's incredibly fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to if you miss one day, you have to go back to a week class the next because a new class comes every week. If you miss one day for being sick, you're in the next class, the next week's class.
Yeah.
You'll get a couple of repeat days. You can't make up one day. It's impossible.
Yeah.
He'll
No.
never catch up.
Yeah.
And there's just no way Kent could sit there and not interrupt and tell them they're wrong because they think we come from a wrong.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm getting to is like the most basic engineering principles completely destroy what Kent is saying.
There's no.
Yeah.
Process, something is lost that can never be regained. When you burn the gasoline in your car engine, if it's really tuned up well, is probably about 30% efficient.
Yeah, that's accurate. I'll take
Most of the exploding gasoline, the energy in there is wasted as heat. That's why you have to have a radiator to keep the engine cool down.
Oh my goodness, he's right again. I'm taking a drink
If you
again.
could get an engine 100% efficient, it'd get 500 miles to the gallon. But so much is wasted.
Okay, so let's go ahead and say that at would you say 40 miles to the gallon is a pretty good efficiency for a car?
I think so, yeah.
And let's say it's at 30% efficient, like he said. So would 100% efficient be 500 miles to the gallon?
Oh, but he just threw a number out there because he sucks at math too.
I'm just going to point out how stupid that is. Because, like, let's say it's
way off. It's way off.
We'll just assume it's like a third efficient. And 40 miles to the gallon times 3 would not be that. That would be, 120 miles to the gallon, Kent. Just get the math. That's one of the things that really pisses me off about Kent, is he can't even get the basic arithmetic
right. He just threw a number out there.
But that's the thing. It's just basic arithmetic. It's like 1 + 1 = 2, and that's beyond Kent Hovind's capacity.
Oh, I just think he doesn't care.
That might be.
Do that, man.
Yeah, that might be. But it annoys me that he gets such basic things wrong. This isn't even algebra. This is like, I bought 60 watermelons. I gave 1/3 of them to Bent Hovind. How many watermelons do I have left? And Kent's like, I don't know, 400? No, Kent, it's not the answer.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more. May as well be 400.
Yeah, sure.
As heat. Your body right now, we're in a room that's about 70 degrees and your body's 98 degrees.
Okay.
All that extra heat is heating the room, which eventually will go out and heat the yard, which eventually heats up the world and dissipates, and it's lost, cannot be regained. So the first law of thermodynamics says matter cannot be created or destroyed.
Sorry, what did you say?
What does he mean by that energy is lost, it can never be regained?
I think it means it can't be used for additional work. In which case, he's actually right, and I'll take it.
Yeah, but he's interacting with other energy in the atmosphere.
Well, yeah,
And
but
it's affecting the temperature and all that.
I'll say this as a general rule, your body temperature cannot be regained in terms of useful work, and I think he's getting at the second law. And if that's what he is doing, then he's broadly accurate there. Not sort of right enough to take a drink, but like it mostly kind of makes sense if you give him an extremely charitable interpretation. So,
which raises the obvious question, what started it all? Had to start someplace.
Okay.
Let's take about a 2-minute break, stand up, turn around, stretch.
All right, well, Kent Hovind is taking a break, and we are nearly at our 2-hour mark. So I think Kent Hovind takes a break, we're going to take a break, and by a break, I mean like a 2-week break, because next week should be Eric with Erica, where Gutsick Gibbon is going to come on. We're going to talk about some Eric Hovind nonsense. So that'll be good. Let's see. Some wrap-up stuff from me. So, tune in Thursday for a special creationist video about how humans are not mammals. If you think they're mammals, it's because you've been lied to by the evolutionists. That is a video that I worked on for actually longer than you would think based on how long the video is. But I think it'll be a fun video. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't want to give too many spoilers. But yeah, come here on 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which is 8 Eastern. I don't know what that is if you're in like somewhere Europe. I don't know. I don't know if anything's coming Saturday. I'm hoping there is something for Saturday. I'm going to try and set something up for Saturday, but no guarantees. Then the next Tuesday again, Eric with Erica. And the Thursday after that is probably going to be Fluffy Dino Lads the movie. and then another account with Bent on that Tuesday. Again, the Saturdays are up in the air, so I'm not giving them to you. But then the Thursday after Fluffy Dino Lads is going to be a video entitled Academic Fraud Defined, because I feel like we have too many pseudoscience fans who don't know what that is. And we're going to talk for a little bit about academic fraud, what it means, some examples of things that are academic fraud, etc. But I am planning on, after this, going on to Top Hats Off. If one of my mods wants to link Top Hats Off, please do. Because that is where I will be next. It's my off-topic channel. It's where I post things like gameplay, art tutorials, literature readings, whatever. There's a whole bunch of craziness, but I do post things there fairly often. That's it for me for wrap up stuff. Bent, do you have any news you want people to know?
There is Copper Magna music.
Ooh.
I'm about to hear the next mix of one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song to play live, Dust. And I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be listening to that right after the stream. And there's a show coming up on Saturday, Masks Required. We will be finally playing live music again, so that'll be a lot of fun.
All right. And where will that be?
That will be at the Edge Bar in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona. All right. The Edge Bar?
Yeah, it is limited to 50% capacity.
Okay.
And so I think there'll be about between 50 and 80 people, I think, because I think it has a pretty big capacity. But
all right. Well, that's not very many people. But if you're in the Tucson, Arizona area, head over to the Edge Bar and hang out with Copper Magma, listen to them play some live music. I've listened to Copper Magma play some live music. I enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're there, go for it. And what date is that? What's the date for that?
October 17th.
All right, there you go. So that is in 4 days?
Something like that. I can't count.
Okay. Well, Bent can't count, but yeah, there you go. So other than that, I think that's it for wrap up stuff. Please head over to my off-topic channel. I'll be setting up a stream where I play some games. I'm not sure what. But yeah, also the sound quality will go down because I'm taking off these sound canceling tiles from my desk, and I'm probably going to turn on the air in here. So, there you go. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. I also want to say a special thank you to all our super chatters who are Ian Chen, Vandalia1998, and Robert Birkinson. All of you have helped to offset the fact that my apartment decided to steal my car today. Yeah. So, there you go. Thank you very much.
And if you check out coppermagma.com right now, we'll see the new picture that we finally had taken.
Well, that's pretty cool. So yeah, check out coppermagma.com if you want. By the way, Copper Magma is the band that has, they've re-recorded my opening song, and so when Bent bothers to send me that, I'm gonna start redoing my intro, and we'll have a much higher quality version of the intro outro song. So there you go. Thank you very much, everybody. I will talk to you over on Top Hats Off.